Okay, hello and welcome to MSDynamicsWorld.com's Fall Data Integration Series. I'm Jason Gumpert from MSDynamicsWorld.com, and I'm really happy to have everyone here with us today for this great event. We have some really interesting material planned for you today. We are joined by two members of the team from Dynamics consultancy, AlfaPeople. First, we have Rob Ubee, a delivery manager at AlfaPeople and a Dynamics CRM vet. He is joined by Sebastian Waksmundzki, also of AlfaPeople. Seb is also a popular blogger who many of you probably know of. He writes at mindthecloud.net, and he has also contributed some really excellent data integration articles to msdynamicsworld.com that I invite you all to check out. So for today's session, we invite you to add your feedback and ask questions. There are a couple ways you can do this. First, you can use the Q&A tab or the chat area that you'll see to the right of the presentation slides, and feel free to share your thoughts there. We'll also be tweeting some of the stuff that we learned today. We'll be using the hashtag MSDW Data Management or MSDW Data MGMT, and I'll post that in the chat as well. Without any further delay, please allow me to welcome Rob Ubee.
Hi there, thank you. As Jason said, my name is Robert Ubee. I work at AlfaPeople based in London in the UK, and I'm the delivery manager, so I look after the projects that we have here and the guys downstairs. We thought we'd talk about some experiences that we've had on integration and some thoughts that we've had on integration on some of the projects that we have implemented. I can't remember the last time we completed a project that didn't have any integration. So we have quite a bit of experience that we'd like to share. Seb?
My name is Sebastian Waksmundzki. I'm Senior Dynamics Architect at AlfaPeople, and I look after the technology side of the integration. And the same as Rob, probably I haven't seen the project which we haven't done any integration since 2 years. Rob, over to you.
Thank you. So, first of all, just to have a quick look at the agenda that we're going to show today. We're going to have a look at the integration goals and strategy, how we would go about creating a data map, the information that is required as part of that data map. We're going to talk about design, which we believe is probably the most important part of an integration project. A little bit on testing, and then we're going to come on to the demonstration that Seb's going to take us through. So, first of all, why integrate and integration goals? So this part should be covered in the analysis phase of project. You're sat around in workshops. You've got business users there talking about what they need from their new system, and at some point a requirement is going to be suggested that needs data from somewhere where you may already have that data stored. Typical example, of course, is an ERP system. So we have a requirement now that could be facilitated with data from another system. It could be also that you start off a project with a goal of providing a 360-degree view of a customer. So we do many projects where a manufacturer, for example, might have an ERP system or even many ERP systems. And for a sales guy to get ready to go to a customer visit, they have to spend several minutes, maybe even several hours, looking at those different ERP systems to get the data that they need to go to that visit. Again, it could be improving efficiency of users. Those two things really go hand in hand. Or it could be to expose data from a legacy system that you don't necessarily want people to be accessing regularly anymore, but you're maybe not ready to switch it off. So they're reasons that we might need to do some integration. Then we need to understand what data is required to deliver that need or those needs. So that would be part of the workshop conversation. What exactly do we want to bring from that ERP system, for example, into CRM? Do we want to bring across some summary information? Do we want to just see sales for the last month highlighted? Do we want to bring more information than that? Maybe it's by product group. We want to see the sales per month, or maybe by actual product line. So that level of detail needs to be understood in the analysis phase before we can move on to the design. And then we need to think about how often that data should be updated. What is the frequency of communication effectively between the systems? It could be that we need to have a scheduled information, which is fairly common, and it could be that that's an overnight integration. Or it could be scheduled so it's near real time. Maybe it's every hour that data is updated, or every 30 minutes, or maybe even every 15 minutes. Or, of course, you've got a real-time integration, which lots of people say that they want to have, but actually when you drive down into the requirements, it's not necessarily needed. We would consider a real-time integration measured in milliseconds, so that really would be a data as it's updated in an ERP system coming through into dynamic CRM. And then we need to understand, should the integration be two-way, or should it just be a one-way integration? Of course, there's some complications that may come with a two-way integration. Not necessarily talking about the technical side, but what would happen if you were bringing across account address information from an ERP system, and your accountant team update the address of an account, that data comes through into CRM, and then the salesperson decides to update the information in CRM, and that goes back into the ERP with a different address. So often what we end up with is a conversation about who is the master of each individual piece of data. And we may say that account information has a master from the ERP system, but potentially contact information has a master, which is the CRM system, as that's the people the sales team are most likely talking with. So we can end up with a master for each individual piece of information, and that can be accommodated quite easily from an integration. So moving on to the next slide. We need to establish an integration strategy as part of the analysis phase. We should be talking about things, which systems should be included, which applications, any third parties, and those conversations should always be driven by a business need. We need to not discount a manual integration. So nowadays everybody wants their integration to be completely automated, but manual is not necessarily wrong. For instance, you might bring across some currency values from another system, and does that need to be updated automatically? Does it need to be updated every minute, or could it be monthly? We need to understand what the volume is of the data that's going to change before we decide whether it should be manual integration or an automatic integration. We need to think about what integration architecture should be applied. So should we use some custom coding to do that, or should we use a tool? There are some benefits of using a tool, and there are maybe some benefits of using code. It could be that actually a tool can't connect to a particular data source. If it's a completely bespoke system that's been built, some code may need to be written to provide maybe an interface for a tool to connect to. So again, we need to understand all of this information in the analysis phase of a project. And we need to understand how much effort should be spent on error handling and monitoring. If we're writing a custom integration, obviously we're going to need to write something that handles errors and provides some monitoring. And we need to think about the specific data that's being integrated. If this integration is of business critical nature, then it would be useful to have some error handling so that when there are issues, someone can easily identify those issues and resolve them. Maybe if it's not so critical, we don't need to spend as much effort on error handling. One of the benefits of using a tool, and certainly in tool selection, would be what error handling and what monitoring is available with that tool. And of course, we need to decide how verbose we want that error handling to be. So we need to think about some considerations for in our integration as well. We need to think about the volume of data for each integration point. This definitely is going to make a difference to how we do the integration and should impact the tool selection as well. And is most important when we're talking about real-time integration. You can imagine that if we have got thousands of pieces of information to come through into CRM, and we need to do that in a real-time scenario, that is quite potentially a difficult requirement to cover off. So we must understand that at the beginning of the project. We need to understand the structure of the data source and of course the structure of the data target. I mean, in this case our target is obviously dynamic CRM, and we do understand the structure of that target very well. But quite often the source is a new application to us, and we need to think about how the data is structured there. We need to map the fields from source to target so that we understand exactly which piece of information is coming from the source to which piece of information, to which location in the target. We need to understand any security requirements that might be needed during that communication. Some systems, the data isn't sensitive. Other systems are very sensitive. If you think about banks, for instance, where there might be some integration. And we need to think about, can we get a delta of the data each night? So an example recently, we did an integration with an old AS400 system. And to do that, we were provided a source every night that was a flat file effectively exported from that AS400 system. And for the first 6 months of that project, they were unable to provide us a delta, so that the changes from that day. And so effectively, every night for that integration, we imported every single record from the AS400 into Dynamic CRM again. And for that process to run, it took about 6 hours for that all that data to come into CRM. Once the AS400 developers worked out the delta each day, that integration now takes less than 10 minutes every night to come into CRM. So there's quite a lot of information that we need to think about, and that will definitely make a difference on when the job can run and what tool we would use to do that integration. We also need to think about what you want to do with the data once it's in CRM. It could be that you just want to be able to view that data or reference that data, or it could be that you need the data in CRM for advanced find functionality or maybe mail merge functionality. And I'll come on to the differences, but what we see as the differences between those two options in the next couple of slides. And all the time we should be asking during this analysis phase, do we need this data in CRM? Okay? So traditionally there are two schools of thought for an integration strategy. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the reduced implementation cost strategy. So effectively, we want to make the integration part of this project as cheap as possible. So that would guide towards maybe accepting more manual processes, i.e. we don't actually do a physical technical integration. Where integration is automated, it might guide towards a point-to-point integration. So by point-to-point, we mean that a specific action in CRM creates an action that goes directly to a specific location in an ERP system and brings that data back to CRM. So an example could be in your CRM record, the customer has an ERP system and a CRM system, and when the CRM record opens, someone decides, wouldn't it be really helpful if we could see the value of unpaid invoices for this customer? So we could write some script on the form that calls off to the ERP system and brings that information back straight away into CRM, and that might take someone a couple of days to do. So that's a pretty cheap integration that's providing some value to your users. It might guide towards the use of products and technology that you as the customer already own, rather than there being more license costs for you to pay for. However, generally this strategy means that you need to accept a higher cost of ownership of that solution. So you would have a higher administration costs and higher user costs, because every time they want to go and get the information, for instance, if it's a manual process, they have to carry on going to look at the other system, which is obviously more effort. And when you want to add a new field, so the bright spark, you said it would be really useful to see the value of unpaid invoices on an account, says, wouldn't it be really good to see the total amount of sales that they've spent in the last month or the last year? And obviously that would be the same amount of work again to write that script call to go and get the data. The other strategy, school of thought, is to enable process integration. So this is where we would work on the basis that we're going to automate everything. And we would generally do this via a centralized architecture. So we would have a tool that calls the information from different systems and brings that into dynamic CRM. And that integration would go through the application layer. This is obviously something that in CRM, in dynamic CRM, is the supported way to bring data back into CRM anyway. And it would mean that business processes get fired off as that data comes into dynamic CRM. This may introduce new products to you as a customer, so there would be some increased costs in licenses within the integration part of this project. But in the long term, it can bring a lower cost of ownership. So my example where we bring across this value of unpaid invoices, whilst for our initial integration, it's maybe cheaper to just write the service that goes away to get that piece of information and brings it in. Every time we want to add a new piece of data, that same piece of work has got to be done again. If we've used a tool to do this integration, it might just be 10 or 15 minutes work to add a new field to that integration. So the administration ongoing costs would be less. Our school of thought is a mixture of the two. We don't believe that manual is wrong. It just needs to be used at the right time. I have an example where we were engaged with a customer and they wanted us to build an application that when new users started, those users were added in the application, and when you click save, the application went to Active Directory and created the users there, and then it went off to the various different applications and created the users in CRM or in AX or Navision, whichever ERP system they were using, and also assigned the security roles to those users. Of course, this sounds like a great idea for those people working in the IT administration department, but when we estimated it, and it came back to be about £40,000 or £50,000 worth of work, and we found out that they only do it twice a week, obviously it's not so sensible a thing to do. We believe that point-to-point integration can form part of an integration, but that it's not right as a full integration. So there's nothing wrong with a call that goes to get a piece of information when a form loads. But if you're doing a huge integration, it's not our recommended approach. We also believe that new technology to you is fine, as long as it's not new to your supplier. It's not right that they should be learning their new skills as part of your project cost. And our preference, as I say out there, is to have a central point within an integration. We believe that that's the safest way and the best way. And our experience has shown that certainly from a maintenance administration perspective, that is the best way to monitor an integration. So moving on to the data map, there's a few points that I'd like to make here, and that is that this is very much still part of the analysis phase of a project. It would be nice to think in a perfect world that this data map would be fully complete and accurate at the end of the analysis phase. In the real world, in our experience, it's probably not 100% complete until the end of the development phase. But the more information we have in the analysis phase, the better the design will be, and probably the quicker the integration work will be completed. A data map must include, as a minimum, the name of the source system, so that's the system that's supplying the data, and the name of the target system, the system that's receiving the data. Now, you could say, well, why don't we just create the file as this is the AX source and this is the CRM target? But certainly if you're having a two-way integration, we would expect to see fields repeated twice on our data map. Once where Navision is the source and CRM is the target, and once where CRM is the target and Navision is the source. For each piece of data, we should include the frequency of that integration. Should it be scheduled, the regularity of the schedule, or should it be real time? There should be a description of the data. There is no such thing as too much information when we're creating this data map. We need information about the schema of the source. So that means the name and the type of field that this source is. You know, is it a pick list of values? Is it a date field? Is it a currency field? And the same for the target. It could be that in the source, this data type is one type, but in CRM, we want to accommodate that in a different way. And any comments that might be useful, and ideally a data owner. Quite often when you have these workshops to discuss the data and start this data map, not everybody is available, so we need to be able to add people that we need to get back to. So that's the data owner. And the data map is the document that provides you with the transparency of what is going to be integrated to what information in CRM. You know, you shouldn't be able to have this the conversation at the end. Oh, you know, I thought you were integrating this field to CRM. But the data map is going to be the system that provides you with that information and that clarity. So design, as I mentioned earlier, design is in our opinion is the most important part of an integration project. Your integration consultant should be completing a design. When you get to the project and they've put their project plan together, there should be a big chunk of that project that's got design listed. And within that design, obviously, there'll be lots of requirements, but the integration should definitely be part of that. If they're saying, you know, we don't need to do an integration, we don't need to do a design, we'll just make it work, that should set alarm bells ringing, and you need to insist that a design document is going to be written for every part of the integration. You need to make sure that you are able to sign off that design before work progresses further than that stage. It's your money that's being spent, and you need to be happy with how they are going to deliver this integration project. If the design document that comes back to you, if you can't understand what's been written there because it appears too technical, in our opinion that means that it hasn't been designed properly. It was a business requirement that decided there was a need for an integration, and therefore it should be understandable by the business before you move on to the build phase of a project. The next comment is perhaps a little bit funny. All options should be considered until they shouldn't. And what I mean by that is the integration part of a project is potentially going to be an expensive part of the project, and it could be that the source can be changed slightly to make that integration easier or more efficient or cheaper. And so that is not something that should be discounted until you get to the point where that's not cheaper anymore, and so we won't consider it anymore. So that's what I mean by all options should be considered until they shouldn't. Flow diagrams should perform part of all integration design. You should find that when you get your integration design document back, that it's full of flow diagrams that show decisions that the tool or the integration is making. If this value equals X, do A. If the value equals Y, do B, etc., etc. Testing strategy is also part of the design. So we need to understand how we need to test to prove this integration is going to be fit for purpose. Do we need to do performance testing? Do we need to check the data quality? As I said, we already need to understand what the volumes will be, and we need to work out how much of that needs to be proven in the test strategy before we go into the development part of the project. And test scripts are also part of the design, and although most people don't necessarily agree with this, test scripts, in our experience, and are definitely the customer's responsibility to produce. Obviously, we will work with the customer to produce those test scripts, but it is the customer that needs to be happy with the solution before it goes live. So test scripts should be written and completed before the design phase is finished. You need to think about things that say, this information in the ERP, the value of unpaid invoices that I've talked about earlier, there may not be that value in the ERP system. It could be that it's a culmination of many records of invoices that are marked as unpaid. So we need to understand how we can calculate that figure manually looking at the ERP system, so that in CRM we can look for that same value and make sure that it corresponds. We also need to understand what the data formats will be. So is it going to be a file-based integration? I mentioned a few minutes ago about our AS400 integration, where we had a flat file coming in, being provided to us, or are we connecting directly to a data source, a database? Can we get the delta, as I said, staging tables, is it Excel files, etc.? All of that information needs to be understood so that in the design we clearly say exactly how we're expecting to receive the information. And my last slide before we move on to Seb is just to say that in our experience the design is the key part of the project. An incomplete or inadequate design can result in rework, wasted money from you, delays to a project, and lots of late nights for us. Excuse me. A good design document can grow into your system documentation. And the more integration you have, the more you need that documentation. What if you change to another partner? The design document is what they need to be able to pick up and carry on with the project. Integration costs, as I've written up there, often represent a significant part of a project budget. And before you move on to the build part, we must verify that the design is right before any of your money is wasted. It's often also the most complex part of the project. So again, the time needs to be spent on the design. Excuse me. Hi, sorry about that. Had the flu for the last few days. So that's the end of what I wanted to talk about. So let me hand over to Seb.
Thank you, Rob. I think it's just time for me to take over because Rob is just losing the voice. But okay, thank you. So what I would like to talk about is some real-life example, how we could do some geographical integration. We choose that topic because we believe that actually this is something very nice and it's a nice challenge to actually show how we can do that. And basically, currently the business is global and we need to really think globally. We need to understand what's going on across the globe. We've got all of the business partners across the globe. And also, we still, or a lot of the people start using the cloud, start adopting the cloud. The cloud technology now is a fact. There is nothing which stops people to using that, and the people are using that a lot of that stuff. And we still have a lot of the on-premise system in B2B world. So all of this actually, all of those elements are part of the geographical integration. So let's imagine that we have a business case. We've got a customer. Customer has got Microsoft Dynamics CRM, a cloud-based version, and also the customer has got business partner, which is located somewhere in, let's say, Far East, somewhere there. And we also host our ERP system in our headquarters. And suddenly, customer thought about getting some nice portal to actually present some of these products, and the portal, of course, is going to be hosted in the cloud. So that's basically our business case. And we need to think about how we can actually integrate all of those systems together using the most efficient way. So we actually came up to the customer and we got some requirements. Well, basically, we have to integrate more than one destination system. As we've seen, we've got ERP, we've got some production system, which is at our business partner location. We have also some portal, which is hosted somewhere in the cloud. And we've got mixture of the cloud and on-premise integration. So we also have some network boundaries that we have to cross. And the same message effectively should be delivered to different sources. So if our salespeople will create, let's say for the sake of demo, customer in our CRM system, the customer information should travel directly to our portal, should travel to our ERP system, and also it should travel to our business partner as well. We have to support for the future data recipients. You can easily imagine that customer at some point will want more sources to integrate, and they will have more business partners. And also we have to accommodate, it has to be done at a reasonable cost. And as I mentioned before, it has to be secure and reliable cross-boundary communication because we've got a mixture on-premise and the cloud solutions. So we have a few candidates for the actual architecture. We could use emails, and we could basically email something from the CRM system to the other guys. but that's old. It relies on the human integration. Someone can read the email too late, and basically it's not something that you could use at the current world. We could come up with some custom pull notifications. So basically, whoever is interested in the information can actually pull that information from our online CRM system. But also we get a few problems here. You would have to give the direct access to our system. It might be some licensing cost involved and things like that. We don't want to actually share our system with our business partner. We just want to share part of the information. And we've got the third candidate, which seems to be quite reasonably good. We could use something called Windows Azure Service Bus with the publisher-subscribe pattern. And I will try to explain in non-technical words what I meant by that. Basically, the Windows Azure Service Bus is a kind of the messaging infrastructure. It's available currently on the Windows Azure cloud, and it allows you to build very nice messaging applications. So you can send some message, and Windows Azure Service Bus is going to take care of everything that you normally take care of yourself. So it gives you all of the infrastructure bits, like queues, topics, all of this underlying technology which you have to use anyway. It guarantees the message delivery. It supports very efficient publisher-subscribe patterns, the architectural patterns to build quite scalable applications. And also it gives you the security and out-of-the-box security. So it looks like this is a quite ideal candidate for our requirements. So that's how the ideal diagram of ideal architecture would look like. So we would have our CRM 2011 cloud-based application that would publish something to a queue which is hosted on the cloud. And whoever is interested in that information could actually subscribe to that information. And that information can travel to our business partner, can travel directly to our ERP system, and also it can be published on our portal. And actually I'm going to now switch off and show you real proof of concept of that kind of the application. So I'm going to share my desktop. And as I mentioned before, I've got my CRM system. It's hosted online, as you can see. I can browse some data. It's still all live. And I'm going to pretend that my business partner has got some kind of application at factory, which sits and waits for the messages from me. And as a third party, I've got my ERP system, which holds all my customers' data. Basically, it's Microsoft Dynamics NAV, just for the sake of the demo. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the new customer. I'm going to pretend that I'm a salesperson. I'm going to create the new customer at the CRM system, and that information should travel directly to my business partner, which runs that factory application, and also it should appear in my ERP system. So let me just do that. I think the AlfaPeople is a good name, so I'm going to definitely use it. Of course, I don't remember the phone number, so I'm going to copy it from the website. Let's come with some 001, probably is the name. We live in London. And so I'm going to send some kind of description, something to my business partner. Please prepare line number 4 for production. I'm going to hit save. And hopefully, if everything is right, after a bit of time, because we didn't specify, you can see the information derived from my business partner. We can see that account has been created, has got the name AlfaPeople. So hopefully, in my ERP system, if I refresh my customer view, I should see AlfaPeople here as well. If I scroll up a little bit, there we go. And it transfers the phone number and the city. So you can see in pretty nice and simple architecture, we achieved quite a lot. And we don't have to rekey the information. And all of those systems, they seem to be working, and they are actually effectively integrated. So let me just summarize what we actually achieved. We've got great scalability because we're using the cloud technology. So that allows us to connect many, many partners. We can distribute the messages. We've got many-to-many communication type of solution. And it's secure, it's reliable, it's cross-boundary. My system was based on the cloud. The other system were on-premise. They talk to each other without any problems. And we achieved, as I mentioned before, great scalability as well. And that's from myself. I'm going to hand over to Rob to summarize.
Hi, everybody. So I think what you've seen today in Seb's demonstration, I love Seb's demonstrations about the cloud. I think it's an amazing technology that's going to allow us to do many, many things in the future. So I guess, any questions from anybody?
All right. Well, let me jump in here and just thank you, you both, Rob and Seb, for a really interesting look at some of these ideas and some of the real practical applications. Yeah, please do enter your questions in the audience. You can enter them through the chat block or through the Q&A block, whichever you prefer. But I know Rob and Seb would love to hear from you and answer questions. So maybe a question for Seb to start, but what are some of the trade-offs, perhaps, in taking the route of using a solution that uses Azure Service Bus as opposed to another option for integrating an ERP to CRM to ERP integration as the one that you demonstrated there?
Well, the cloud is fantastic. It allows you to communicate cross-boundary, and relatively, the cost is not that high as you would expect. And I think it's going to grow and grow, as Rob mentioned, and more people are going to use it. And it's secure. It gives you a lot of the options out of the box. You don't have to actually spend much time. And also, what in terms of the Dynamics integration, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM, for example, has got built-in connector, which allows you to almost out of the box directly to the cloud.
Okay. We actually had a question about the slides and access to them. Do you have a preferred way that you want to share those? They're not available directly downloaded from the session here today, but do you have another preferred way?
I'm quite happy for people to email me, and I can email the slides back. No problem at all.
Okay, maybe Rob, maybe you want to post your email address in the chat there so people can see it. But we do want to hear from you. What did you think of the demo? What are some of your own data integration experiences? Rob, one thing I'm curious about is maybe in your direct experience, trying to do some of those assessment items up front that you described. What would you estimate that people end up choosing overall in terms of trying to find prepackaged or pre-built integrations as opposed to writing custom lines of code, any at all? Do you find that people are still open to the idea of, or find that they need to get in there and write custom business logic most of the time?
Actually, we find most people now are preferring to use a tool to do the integration, and much less custom code. What we're finding is people want to have the the benefits of being able to upgrade the system. That's definitely one of the reasons that people would choose Dynamic CRM, of course. So as with the integration, as with Dynamic CRM, the integration tool supplier will keep bringing out new versions. They might have improved functionality or improved performance. And by buying one of those tools, you're sort of, people talk about future-proof and things like that. I don't necessarily agree that it would be future-proof, but certainly it's better than having a lot of custom code involved. We have another customer that many years ago had a tool and wrote several different web services to be able to service their website, and it was great, and it worked really well for them for many years. But now they're in a position where to try and maintain all of those web services is costing them basically a resource to every year to keep them working and make changes. So if they'd have used a tool to do that, whatever was selected, that they would have been able to upgrade to new versions and probably not have the headache that they have now.
All right, a couple other questions that came in. So one of them is asking for a product like Smart Connect, are there any advantages from what Seb demoed to using using that product, or let's say any pre-built product?
Could you repeat the question? Because there was some echo.
So the question that came in was related to the product Smart Connect, and asking, are there any advantages over that? I think over that in terms of, Seb, what you demoed and an approach like that uses the Azure Service Bus. And maybe you could elaborate it to other pre-built solutions in general. I
mean, I personally don't know Smart Connect, but yeah, if you have a pre-built solution that you trust and you're comfortable with that, it's nothing wrong to use it. That's the simplest thing that I can talk about.
Mm-hmm. Another question that came in. Oh, I'm sorry, Seb. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't think you're saying that. We're trying to not necessarily recommend any specific tools for the. I think there are lots of good tools out there to do integrations with. Mark has posted up there about BizTalk. Certainly that is one tool. You might use SSIS. There are other tools out there to do the integration with as well. I think what we're saying is that in our experience, the tool is a better option than custom code, depending on the scale of the integration. So you need that tool.
All right, absolutely, and yeah, to echo Rob's point, we're definitely not here to support one particular solution on this session. A question came in, and I guess you've touched on it, but how does BizTalk fit into this process? And Seb, was that something you wanted to tackle?
Oh, BizTalk is a product, and it's definitely the tool that you should look at it. It allows you to actually create very nice hub-based integration, and it has got adapters to almost everything on the planet, including Azure itself. So instead of using that factory simulator that I have, I could actually use BizTalk and wait for the messages coming from the cloud to the BizTalk and then distribute them further. Does it answer the question? Or is there any more specific question about BizTalk?
Yeah, please do add your questions or clarify if you'd like a follow on. But we are actually at the end of the question queue right now, so maybe we will start wrapping up here if there are no other questions. The session is recorded and we'll make it available to you in the next few days here. I want to just take this opportunity right now to say thanks to Rob and Seb for their time today and for sharing what they know. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone in the audience for your attention today and for your questions. It was great to hear from you. And thanks again for attending. Please stay on the lookout for other events in data integration and other topics coming up from MS Dynamics World this fall. So thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.